Hey y'all, it's Robert, and in today's video, I'll be showing you how to make a two-tier unicorn cake. It's my 4-year cake anniversary, and I actually made this cake back in 2019. It was the very first cake that I ever made, and I really didn't know what I was doing, but I still was very proud of it, so that's why I kept going. So I'm going to recreate that design, and I can explain to you all what I did because I actually know what I'm doing now. To start, we're going to level and torque all the cake layers, and these cakes are all flavored vanilla, but I wanted to add color on the inside, so I colored them blue, pink, and yellow. After the cakes are leveled, I'm then adding simple syrup to each one. Now it's time to stack the cakes, and the bottom tier will be an 8-inch cake and the top tier is a 6-inch, and they'll each have 6 layers of cake with vanilla buttercream in between. I'm using the cake board as a guide, so I'm making sure that I have enough room by cutting down just the size of the cake, and that'll leave enough room to add the ganache. As always, I'm adding a crumb coat, and this will keep all those crumbs in place. And this was something that I didn't know to do in the very beginning, but I've learned that it is very helpful. For my first cake, I used American buttercream, but I now like to use Swiss meringue buttercream. And then whenever I'm covering the cake with fondant or modeling chocolate, I use Ganache. But to keep this cake colorful, instead of using a regular chocolate ganache, I'm making a white chocolate ganache, and then I'm going to color it pink. So the ratio of white chocolate ganache is a little different than the regular chocolate ganache I make. So I'm making a 4-to-1 ratio here. So that just means it's 4 times the amount of white chocolate compared to the cream. And to keep this cake colorful, I'm adding a few drops of pink food coloring after the ganache has combined. So as the ganache is cooling, I'm covering my cake boards that I'm using as guides with cling wrap, and this is going to allow them to come off the cake easily. Now I can add the ganache to the cake and use a cake comb to smooth it out. After the ganache is set, I can then remove those cake boards so I can add the fondant. When I first made this cake, it was the very first time I ever worked with fondant, and I used the draping method, but I prefer to use the paneling method now. I think that it comes out a lot cleaner and it's easier to get those really sharp edges. So to panel this cake, I'm using pink fondant that I rolled out, and I'm adding a disc to the top of the cake, and then I'm going to wrap the sides of the cake with more pink fondant. And I'm doing the same exact thing for the top tier, but I'm using white fondant this time. So the base of all these tiers are now done, and I can now start designing it. So we're going to start with the bottom tier first, which has a quilted design. And when I first did this cake, I did it all by hand, and I tried to get the lines as clean as I could. It didn't really work out the best, but now I have this fondant embosser, so this is really going to get those clean lines, and it's a lot faster. At each cross section, I'm adding an indentation so that the candy pearls can be pushed into the cake, and then I'm using piping gel as an edible glue so that they stay in place and don't fall out. So the bottom tier is now done and I can now stack the cake, but first I have to add the dowels, which was something that I did not do in this very first cake and for the first few cakes that I made, and I learned my lesson because after a while you'll notice that the cake starts to bulge because the weight on top just continues to press it down, so make sure you use dowels if you're going to stack a cake. For this 8-inch cake, I'm using 4 dowels and I'm making sure that they're all cut the same exact length so that the cake on top will be level. Now I can add white candy pearls to the base of the top tier, and I don't want them to roll off, so I'm adding more piping gel so they stay in place. Now I can add the topper, and I couldn't make this out of fondant or gum paste, but I wanted to keep this as close to the original as possible, so I'm using the same exact one that I bought before, and I'm just placing it right into the center of the cake. So the topper comes with paper eye cutouts, so I'm using it as a template and then drawing them on with a black edible marker. It's time to add the unicorn hair, so I'm using 4 different piping tips and 4 different colors, and this is really where you get to have fun and freestyle and make any design that you want. So I'm starting with pink first, and I'm piping rosettes at different places around the cake, and then filling in those spaces with blue, purple, and yellow. The last step is to add blush to the unicorn's face, so I'm using pink petal dust and I'm lightly brushing it on. And there we have it, this unicorn cake is now complete. So there was a lot of different things that I could have done to add to this design, but I wanted to keep it like the original to show the progression of my 4 years of self-taught experience. So if you like this cake and you like this video, make sure you give it a thumbs up and subscribe to the channel. And if you haven't, make sure that you comment below what cakes you want to see me make next. And until then, I'll see you all in the next video. Instead of using a regular chocolate ganache, I'm making so the white chocolate ganache ratio is ratio. Ew, that sounds gross. Ratio. 1, 2, 3. Yes. And to make sure that they stay in place and don't fall out, I'm using, what am I using? So I'm starting with pink first. Ugh.